Thank you very much for giving Jasmine and I the opportunity to elevate the voice of what we all know here is one of the most important people that makes youth sports so important for kids. I want to introduce Jasmine Ward, who is a coach at a program in Baltimore, all throughout Baltimore City, Play on Purpose, POP for short. And they teach leadership through sports and to get kids to be better scholars, athletes, and leaders. Jasmine is a third-year student at Morgan State, but more importantly, she's been coaching at POP for the last 3 years. She has an all-girls program as well as co-ed, and she teaches all sports. And one of the reasons I'm so honored to be up here with Jasmine is because at Positive Coaching Alliance, we train 50,000 coaches a year. We're part of the Susan Crown Exchange Million Coach Challenge, and we know, like all of you do, that we work with to change the culture of youth sports, that it's the coach that really makes the difference. So I'm going to ask Jasmine a few questions about what it is that we can do to support coaches and what coaches need to be the best coach for kids. So first, let me start, Jasmine, by asking you, what drew you to coaching?
Hello, everyone. So what drew me to coaching, actually it started from my photography. So I do a lot of photography, freelancing, self-taught. And a friend of mine by Rashida Ford, she's the director of the program POP, Play on Purpose. And she asked me if I can be a photographer for the summer. So when I came in that year of 2019, I was doing photography as well as coaching on the side. I was basically doing everything I could do. Anything I can help, I was there. So with a lot of the youth was there. They was telling me how great of a coach I was and how they wanted me to actually coach them on the field. So the following year is what made me try out coaching, actually. So I wound up putting the camera down for a while, and I actually was on the field with the kids. And honestly, my experience and connection with the youth is what makes me a great coach, because they can relate to me and connect to me in different ways that kind of transitions to having the leadership skills and the empathy and compassion that I have, and it transferred them to outside of the field. So they become leaders on and off the court. And that's what we do at Play on Purpose.
Great, thank you. And what do you want and hope the kids will take away from you as a coach, and particularly in terms of the life skills that you think you're teaching on the court?
Life skills, I would say communication, accountability, compassion, and just being responsible. We want to be accountable for ourselves, but we also want to understand the role that we play in other people's lives. So if we're a teammate, we want to make sure we're giving that helping hand to our other players that may not be as strong as us, or we want to help out our coaches, or even in the community. So we want to be able to use those experiences as a team on the field and take that into the community.
Great. And what do coaches like you need to be most successful? What can we do to support coaches?
Honestly, what I feel like coaches need is more resources for the children that don't have as much access to sports. A lot of students or a lot of scholars, they don't have the funds to actually get into these great sports programs and be able to excel in that way. For me, I've always been a player, but I never had the resources or the support, I would say, to be able to actually go to the level that I could have been on. So now I'm trying to be in a position that I can help the people that's behind me to reach the goals that they really want to set for themselves.
Great. And last question, do you have a particular young person that you're coaching that you want to tell us a story about how you saw a change in them because of the
Yes. When I was working at Baltimore Leadership Academy, I was coaching the all-girls middle school basketball team. This was my first year, and I had a particular student. She was like the oldest on the team. She was on her way to high school. She was in 8th grade, and she was a very great player, but her attitude wasn't the best. She wasn't the easiest player. She wasn't easy far as being coachable. And sometimes when we're younger, we don't understand how our attitude can make or break us. So it was very difficult with me kind of trying to connect with her and get her to understand that she's a leader and that her other teammates is looking up to her because she's a great player. So I've always pulled her to the side and just try to have those one-on-ones with her and try to understand what was triggering her and why she was having like these meltdowns or these, I guess, bad behaviors when things wasn't going her way. So once we was able to really like talk and connect, I started making her understand that, I'm not hard on you for no reason. I'm not trying to be hard on you at all, but I want you to understand the important role that you play for yourself as well as others around you. So energy transfers, and we want to make that as best as possible.
Great, thank you. Let's hear it for Jasmine. Thank you so much. Yeah, before we leave, I want to introduce Ben Schornack from Laureus, USA.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ben Schornack. I'm the Chicago Program Officer of Laureus USA, and I'm pleased to introduce you all to Susan Klumpner. She is the co-founder and executive director of the ACE Project, and they've been a grantee of Laureus USA and have been part of our Sport for Good Chicago coalition, so I'm thrilled to chat with her.
Thank you so much, Ben. All right, so before we jump in, I brought with me all the way from Chicago a couple of Ted Lasso-isms. MOJO is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but I am planning on tossing this into the audience. So it's not going to be a fast toss. It's going to be more like a rainbow throw. So if you could raise your hand if you're willing to try to catch a tennis ball. Oh, now I have to aim? Here we are. Yes. All right. What does your ball say? Spoiler. While this isn't something that we explicitly say to our players, it's an informal practice. So as Ted famously said, goldfish are the happiest animal on the planet. Because they have such short-term memories, they forget the mistakes that they made, and rather than focusing on what went wrong, they're able to move on. Obviously, this is an extreme, but we can learn from our mistakes and adjust during a game. There's no productive purpose of beating ourselves up. You want to try, Ben?
I'm ready. Okay, hands up again. We're going to go that way. Oh, nice catch. All right, what's that one say? Believe. Okay, if any of you have watched Ted Lasso, you know that he speaks about the power of belief, but he also speaks that as coaches, we have to get our athletes to believe. We have to get them to believe in their own power of belief, that if they can believe in themselves, they can do anything that they put their minds towards.
Last one, I promise. Ooh, all right. Heads up to everybody around this person.
Oh. All right.
Yes. All right, what's it say? A lesser-known Ted Lasso-ism, yeah. This phrase signals to a player that their presence is important and they're a part of our group. Obviously, it builds social cohesion and ultimately motivates athletes to give their best effort because it contributes to something greater than themselves.
Okay, round of applause for everybody. 3 for 3 catching the tennis balls. So clearly, Susan is a tennis coach. I'm a basketball coach, but we thought right after lunch we would do tennis balls and make sure that people can catch them. So one of the things that I've worked on quite a bit over the past couple of years is working with Go Squeeze, who's one of the partners at this summit, on developing the Fun Comes First playbook. And the purpose of this playbook is to get us as coaches to think about the role that kids play in developing their own programming. How do kids have a voice? How do we as organizations and coaches think about youth-centered play? So we want to talk to you about that today. So Susan, can you tell us all a little bit more about the ACE project and how you incorporate youth-centered play into your work?
Sure, yeah. So the ACE Project is a youth development nonprofit that brings free after-school programs, including tennis, to Chicago, Baltimore, and Detroit's underserved communities. First of all, our athletes are young, like 12 and younger young. Still, voice and choice is imperative. How this looks in practice obviously depends on the age and developmental level, culture and community, programming, and your relationship with your athletes. For us, in our after-school program, we offer an enrichment component, a choice between yoga, digital storytelling, improv, comedy, arts and crafts, though it's expected that every after-school participant plays in a sport, which is our structured tennis program. So following USTA's Net Generation model, we begin with a character word such as respect, responsibility, or cooperation. We have a warm-up, goes into skill development, game development, and then a cool down. But there are multiple opportunities within each program component to promote youth voice. For example, during our warm-up, we call on our athletes' creativity. We offer them an opportunity to suggest alternative ways to run lines. Whether or not that's like backstroking, like they're swimming to the end of the gym, or some of our creative athletes like to runway walk, or make fun of adults and speed walk to the end of the gym. These subtle choices are important, particularly among children who have experienced trauma disproportionately. As not only a coach, but also as a social worker, children who experience trauma not only need structure, but they also need voice and choice. As coaches, we need to empower children to use their own vocabulary through play to express what they need.
Thanks, Susan. So as a grant-making organization, we care about this a lot, and we actually ask organizations to write into their applications how they do what Susan just talked about. One of the pieces of pushback that we often receive is, especially for young kids, kids don't need choice, they need structure, right? And I think we have talked about how it's not an either-or discussion. So how do you balance the need for structure with the need for choice?
And I think giving choice doesn't mean turning over the reins of your program. It means being intentional in your structure to design appropriate places for voice and choice in developmentally and culturally relevant ways. As I mentioned, we chose to focus on enrichment programming while leaving our tennis programming more structured. That might look different for a program if you work with older kids or maybe in a different sport, but these two things actually complement each other.
Awesome. Any final words that you'd like to share or anything else that you've learned from the playbook that you've been incorporating into your program?
Big question. But as a female coach of color, I was particularly pleased to read about the importance of recruiting and training other female identified coaches and the assertion that there needs to be a representation of various cultural identities, especially when working within marginalized communities. For example, the ACE Project trains community adults, mostly women, in youth development principles as well as coaching 10 and under tennis. Not only does this build and formalize the development of professional coaching skills, it empowers already invested people in the community who already care for their youth. Additionally, having representation on all levels of the organization, including leadership and board of directors, is of utmost importance to ensure that decisions are made within an equity-focused lens. So everything from the hiring of coaches, the selection of youth programming sites, down to the delivery of programming is culturally relevant for whichever community you're working in.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. And we will now welcome up Go Go Squeeze, and you'll learn a little bit more about this Fun Comes First playbook. Thanks, everyone.